Over the course of our coverage, we have repeatedly reached out to the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, and only today did we receive an answer, if you can call it that. The DA's office said, and I quote, "We have no further comment regarding this case. Period." End quote. Further comment? Where's the closer comment? There's been no comment. Brian Entin joins me now live from Philadelphia. Brian, start right now with the new photos. What did you discover?
Yeah, so we're outside the Philadelphia Police Department tonight, Ashley, which is a little awkward because we've sort of been calling them out for the last month or so with these reports, but it's such a strange investigation. We've talked about the stabbing, which you mentioned, the 20 times that she was stabbed in the front, in the aorta, in the back. But what's interesting and hasn't got a lot of attention is the bruises. And I want to warn you, we're going to show you some autopsy photos here. We're trying to be sensitive, so we zoomed in. But there were bruises all over her body, Ashley, and we just got our hands on these photos today. You can see on the neck there are bruises, and as we kind of cycle through, there are some bruises that appear to be more fresh. There are some that appear to be older. There was experts who reviewed these photos along with a lawsuit that the family filed, and the experts said that some of these appear to be fingernails that went into Ellen. There's bruises on her arm that you can see. There was one quote that I read from one of the experts that said the patterns were consistent with a repeated beating. So I looked at the full photos, really, really disturbing, Ashley. I want to show you, there's this diagram that was created by one of the experts that specifically shows where all of the bruises were on Ellen's body. You can see it right there, all of those yellow circles. Those are the bruises that were all over her body that were just never really explained.
Except they still came to a suicide. And to that end, Brian, they first ruled it a homicide, but then they switched it to suicide. And as it turns out, they almost switched it back to homicide and then didn't. What's the story there?
Yeah, that's something that we just learned, which was mind-blowing. We interviewed the prosecutor on the case, who was assigned to go over the case and review all the evidence and documents, and he had to find a lot of the evidence was in a storage closet, hard to find, which was weird. But when he went over everything, he says that he was positive that it was not a suicide. So he called up the medical examiner. This was back in 2015. And he said, how the heck is this a suicide? Like, what are we going to do here? This doesn't make any sense. And he says that the medical examiner agreed that he would change the cause of death to maybe homicide, but maybe undetermined. We talked to Ellen Greenberg's family attorney about that very interesting nugget. This is what he said.
The medical examiner said, well, we're going to change it. 100% we're going to change it. I just don't know to what. Do we make this undetermined and let more investigation occur and then see if this is a homicide? Or is that enough to say, hey, this is a homicide and we should be proceeding as though this is a homicide?
Do you think he just got distracted, or do you think there's something more to why he didn't do it?
I think there's a lot more to it than why he didn't do it, which is why we have our second lawsuit accusing, or at least alleging, that he's an accessory after the fact of hiding a homicide.
It really is so strange, Ashley. Why would he agree to then change it back, but then years go by and absolutely nothing has happened?
So another question, you went through the entire autopsy report. You say you found like big mistakes or even lies. Explain that.
Yeah, so I want to show you another diagram so you can understand this, Ashley. And the knives, the stabbing wounds did not only go in the front of the victim, Ellen's body, but in the back, actually in the back of her brain and into her spinal column. And initially, the medical examiner was trying to say that the knife did not actually pierce her spine, which is important because if it did, she wouldn't have been able to continue stabbing herself. She wouldn't have been able to move. So in the autopsy report, I want to read you this quote. This is the original autopsy report. It said, neuropathologist Dr. Lucy Rourke examined the spinal cord and concluded that there is no defect of the spinal cord. There it is right there in black and white. But what's interesting is when we interviewed the prosecutor and he was going over all the evidence, he says that he called that doctor and she said, wait a minute, I had nothing to do with the case. I never even did that. So there's a real mystery of how that ended up in the autopsy report, and it's an important part of it.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.